G'day everyone, Dikko here with another kick-ass walkthrough. I've got a pretty cool video here today because I'm going to be doing it old school by creating a character from scratch without using a base sculpt. This is for all you folks who either don't have a tablet to sculpt with, aren't comfortable sculpting, or simply don't have the computing power that high poly sculpting requires. This isn't going to be a multi-part series either. This is going to be a single mega tutorial. And hopefully the only tutorial you'll ever need to create basic humanoid characters. That being said, I'm not going to be as super comprehensive as my previous videos on the subject, but I will talk through the edge flow requirements as I work through the model so you don't get lost. And if you need further information, feel free to check out some of my previous videos on building characters. And for those who wish to see how to build specific parts of the body, chapters will be available in the timeline of this video. The only difference this time is that I'm going to be using Maya for this one out of a courtesy to some of my students. That being said, the methods here still work in other software, so I might even do a follow-up video in the future using Blender. That being said, let's jump right in, shall we? All right, so let's get started. So I've already assigned a project to this guy. So I've set a project called Muscle Girl. And if you're familiar with Maya, you know that you always should start with a new project. So make sure you do that. Again, this is one of those tutorials where I'm talking about modeling. I'm not talking about how to use Maya, all right? So you should understand how to use Maya, how to set up projects before you move on to this stuff. So I'm just gonna set that project and go to File. I'm gonna open up my, not File, I'm gonna make a new single plane, and then I'm going to assign a texture to this with a new material. So first thing I want to do is create a new material. It's just going to be a simple Lambert. I'm going to call that ref image. All right, I'm going to turn on image preview or texture preview there. Then I'm going to assign my turnaround, my model sheet to that file. So I already have a model sheet ready to go. So there it is there. And it's always nice to have a square image for this because it makes it a lot easier to understand proportion. All right, I'm gonna grab that plane and then rotate that 90 degrees along X. So it's facing the camera, the front view camera. And I'm going to quickly go into front view. And then I'm going to push D on my keyboard to move the pivot point to the base of the front side of that model. So I'm going to bring it all the way down here. And there's a reason why, because what I want to do is line up my model sheet to the front view of this setup. So it makes it a lot easier to scale it up from that pivot point. I'm scaling it up a little bit because Maya works in centimeters, so I'm just estimating the scale here. It's not going to be high enough at all to scale, but I can always scale it up after the fact, after we finish modeling it. So I'm just going to scale it up to around there. I'm going to line up there and just scale up a little bit further. And I think that's good enough for the front view. So you can see here that the plane is sitting right in the middle of the world. So I would prefer to actually move it back a little bit. But before I do that, I'm going to duplicate this plane one more time. And I'm going to rotate the second plane 90 degrees along the side view. So this is the side view there. Move that way, move this from that way. And go into the right view in this case. And then line up the side view like so. Cool. So now if we go to front view, we have our model centered to this world, and then we go to our side view, right view, centered there. And if we go to perspective, you'll see they're sort of floating in that space, further away from that center of the world. That being said, in order to avoid confusion about which is front and which is side, what I like to do is quickly go into the face selection mode and just delete some faces to hide away, I guess, the part that I don't need to see in front view. And the same thing goes for the side view. So deleting these ones here, deleting these ones here, like so. Now we have our front and side views good to go. I'm going to now make sure that I add them to a layer, create layer from selected. So I can either turn them off or I can make them so I don't accidentally click on these things all the time when I'm modeling. So I'm going to rename this as ref, save, and then I'm going to just reference them out like so. So now I can no longer accidentally click on that file. All right, cool. I'm going to save that file now. I'm going to call this Muscle Girl. In this case, I'm going to call it Muscle Girl 01. Push save as. All right, cool. Now we're ready to go and start modeling. So what I need to do is, again, create a plane like so. And I'm going to go into the polyplane settings in the channel box and reduce the subdivision count down to 0 on one side. And then 2, I think it's 2 on the other side. So this one, width will be set to 2. You know, and set to 1. And then I'm going to go into face selection mode and delete this face. Done. You'll see why in a moment. Because what we're going to do is create an instance duplicate of this face to do the other side of the body. The next thing I want to do is go into my modeling toolkit and turn on symmetry, but set it to the world setting. So if I try to move this vertex across to the negative X, it won't go. But this side will work fine. This is so I avoid crossing over to the negative side of the mesh. All right, cool. Next thing I'm going to do is go to File. No, sorry, not File. Edit, Duplicate Special, and I'm going to say a duplicate instance. So it's going to duplicate this object as an instance, so it will inherit any changes I make to the original piece, which is my face here, and I'm going to have it scaled to -1. So it's actually going to flip over to this side of the body of the world space. So the scale will be -1 on the X only. So set it for instance, and then scale -1, push apply, and now when I try to model this or try to add and move things around, you'll see that it mirrors across perfectly. And as long as we have symmetry world X turned on, hopefully in vertex selection mode, it can't slide across. So that's really useful for us. We may need to turn that off and on as we need to, but at this point in time, that's all we need to do for now. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just lay out my interface a little bit with this button here. I want to have 2 panes because I want to see the world in front view on one side, and I might stick with perspective for now, but we may go to side view in this one every now and then. Okay, so now what we're going to do is work out our basic loops for our face. Okay, so the loops that will construct the face, we're going to work out the basic loops required as we did with any other sculpted piece as we do retopo. Okay, so once we've done all this layout, we're going to start by blocking out the body. So the body is probably the easiest part of the whole process, in my opinion, versus the face. And by having the body blocked out, getting you warmed up for understanding edge loops, I think you'll be in a better position to do the face afterwards. So what we're going to do is go to our poly modeling section. We're going to add a cube. In that cube, I want you to do the following. I want you to go to the channel box. I want you to go to the cube settings and add a subdivision on the width by 2. Okay, there's a reason why, because what we're going to do is delete one side. Oh shit, my bad. We're going to, that's how it's supposed to be, two points on the width. So then we're going to delete one side. Interesting. Must have added 2 cubes. Yep. Delete 1/2 of that cube. Okay. And then we're going to go straight into our edit mode duplicate special with the options, and we're going to create an instance copy. So we're going to make an instance of this cube, but mirrored across in the -1. I'm going to push duplicate special, and it will duplicate across. The cool thing about this is that it will allow you to edit in mirror mode. So basically it allows you to edit the mesh in a mirrored fashion. All right, so what we're going to do now is select the entire face and bring it up to the chest. And in each of our modes here, we're going to line up that cube in edit mode to our chest, like so. Line up that chest using face, edge, whatever you need to do that. Cool. I'm going to do like so. If you're wondering why I can see through the object here, it's because I have X-ray turned on, so that's the reason why. All right, let's go into side view on this side and line up the chest on this side. And you can see here that we already need to add some more geometry. So we're going to bring that over here like so. We need to add a loop. So we're going to go to our modeling toolkit, multi-cut, add a cut there. I'm going to select this edge here. Just bring that out like so for now. We will have to extrude out the breasts later on, but for now, this is enough for the structure of the top of the body. And then we're going to grab the face on the bottom here and then extrude down. Going to scale it in a little bit like so. Extrude down again. Keeping it as simple as possible. And then one more extrusion for that hip. Cool. Be sure to clean up those verts if you need to on the way. So I'm going to clean up that there. Start to fill out those there. Bring that in here to get that structure. You can already see it's starting to get the structure we need for that body. Jump into front view and line up that structure here as well. For fuck's sake. If you find that you end up selecting the mirrored object as well, just feel free to go to channel box, create layer from selected, and do the same thing. Call that mirror. Give that a color as well. And just reference that out. Just so you don't end up accidentally clicking it all the time. It's really fucking annoying. You can turn off camera-based selection every now and then as well, because it could be useful just not to have it turned on. All right. So again, just working out our structure for the body. Again, always feel free to switch between left and right view from time to time. There we go. Cool. We could probably add one more loop here as well. Multi-cut. Roll there. And get that structure in, like so. Let's go into front view. And again, see what we've got. We've got a little bit of options here. We may need to add some more information there, but let's worry about that later. So what I'm going to do is just get that shape in there. Work out that shape there. Cool. All right. So you can see here the structure of the body comes together pretty quickly. Obviously for the chest, we can add more width there, but for now I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, what's next? So the next step would be to do the arms. Now the arms are a bit tricky in that you need to create the structure for that first. So what we're going to do is we need to make a loop that goes around the chest, up or above the shoulders, and then back around the back. So something, well, basically like this, but it goes over the shoulder. So what we need to do is create another loop here, and then delete this face. And then we're going to create a cut here and here on the side. And then we're going to bring this one forward, this vertex forward a little bit first, like so. So eventually we're going to do that. But first, what I want to do is create a single loop out first to create a little bit more structure for that shoulder. Okay. Now, what I want to do next is grab these two. I'm going to extrude those down. And I'm going to target weld that corner to that corner, this corner to this corner. So I'm going to get the target weld this corner, make sure I'm in vertex mode, target weld from here to here, here to here, and then we're good to go. This will give us the structure we need for our shoulder. All right, you can see here I'm keeping it really simple at the moment. Last thing I want to do is create a cut here and a cut here. That will give us the amount of geometry we need to maintain the volume for the arm. So we have a nice clean loop of 8 in this case. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can use the circularize tool to circularize that arm a little bit. I'm going to scale that down slightly. Bring it out. And then we can create our next extrusion, which will be the arm, like so. There's our first chunk for our arm. There's our second chunk for the arm. There we go. We're getting there pretty quickly, at least for now. And you can see here that we have a nice clean geometry for the structure of the rest of the body. So you can see we have a loop for the upper body. We got some structure for the chest, and we can make that all work as we sort of mold this body around. So if I were to smooth shade this, we're starting to get there. And we have one issue though, is that the extrusion down the side of the body has been created here. So we need to delete these faces. They're actually hidden on the side. That's why it's causing this weird fuck up. So we need to delete those faces. There we go, that's better. Like so. But you can see that even with this most basic of structure, we're getting a pretty good breakdown of the components of the body. So these loops are basically exactly the same as those we used in the previous videos I've made. But the only difference is we're just doing it out of like a box modeling sort of style. We're not using any Sculpt as reference, you know what I mean? So you can just use basic sculpting tools in Maya to just manipulate the basic structure of that body. All right. Cool. So what we're going to create now is the legs. So this one can be a bit tricky because the butt's always a bit of a pain in the bum, literally. Because of the extra mass you have at the back of the the gluteus. So I'm thinking we need to do an extrusion out from here first. So I'm going to make an extrusion here, and this depends on the structure of your body again. I'm going to make an extrusion out like so, and then I'm going to delete these faces on the bottom, except for this one here. We need that one. Just these ones here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like so. We're basically going to create something similar to the shoulders, but for the hips in this case. Once you've done that, you could probably smooth it out with a little bit of a quick little sculpt. Just smooth those out a little bit, like so. You can see here it's very similar to the shoulder structure of that leg, of the arm. Sorry. All right. So once we've done that, let's just mold these this loop here to sort of fit within the paradigm of the bum. All right. Cool. So I'm just working out what I need to do here. I think I might add a loop here. Let's see. I'm thinking about adding a loop that goes in and then down and around under the leg. That might work for me. I think I might do that. Let's give it a go. Add a cut here. And we're going to create a bridge between two edges. This one and this one. Bridge. So what we end up having is a nice loop that goes up and around, and probably going to redirect that to go around the back. So what I'm going to do here is grab the weld tool and weld this one, and then weld this one. Whoops. Sorry, weld these two. And the reason I'm doing that is so I have this structure here that goes around the body. Okay, cool. What I can do here is then add a multi-cut here. Then I'm going to add a quad draw, target weld from here to here, just to add some volume there in those hips. So there we go. I'm going to loop there and a loop over the body, just like the shoulders. Now we can actually work out the legs. All right, so what we need to create now is the legs. And the problem is that when you look at the structure of the legs are pretty easy. It's just that the butt has a lot of volume. And if you're going for a skin tight sort of character, it can be tricky to get that volume in there, just as I've shown you that in the past. The question is, how are we going to get that volume in there without, I guess, sacrificing the legs? So I think the solution in this case would be to add a loop here. And we're going to create enough geometry to bridge across before we extrude out. So what I'm going to do is I've made a loop at the front. I'm going to make another, so yeah, I'm going to bridge that, essentially. Bridge here. I'm going to make another bridge here. I'm going to add a loop here. And then I'm going to target weld this vert to this vert to get that volume. So let's just go ahead and add that volume. Like so. Yeah, I think this will work all right. The problem is that you might get a 6-star pole here. So what we need to do is bevel. I'm going to create a bevel. Hopefully this will be enough to work. So the bevel will incorporate the around the leg. So you'll see what I mean. So let's go ahead and do an extrusion to start off with. I'm going to select this loop here. It's just basically a bunch of quads. I'm just going to extrude out over here. There's not much geometry there to work with, but we can make do. So the problem now is that we have a 6-pointed star here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I'm going to do is select this loop here all the way up and over. This time it's going to be, actually I think that will work fine. All the way up and over. And this time I'm just going to, I think that should be enough. Nah, it has to come around all the way down, like so. Let's see what happens. Bevel that. Yeah, I think that will be fine. Cool. So by beveling that, we get the structure like so. One loop that goes all the way around the body and around the butt. One goes up the spine. One goes along the bikini line, which is really nice. And it gives us enough room to add structure to the butt when we need to. So now what we can do is add a loop here and here and still maintain the volume of the bum. 1, 2, 3, add a little bit of volume, there we go. 1, 2, 3, add a bit of volume, there we go. And it's basically the same structure as the shoulder, but for the legs. Now, the only problem now is that we don't have enough geometry to go along the legs. Basically a square. That's really easy to fix. All we need to do is add some more cuts along the vertical. So along the leg line there, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And we can now use the circularize tool to circularize that structure. Oops, wrong one. Circularize that. We're going to do the same thing on this loop here. Circularize that. And we should have the right amount of geo to work with. Perfect. All we need to do now is go into front view and manipulate that loop a little bit more, like so. There we go. Now just take a moment to fix up those verts a little bit. Get that shape in there. Bring that volume out. So you have to go in and manually, sort of get that structure in. But the geometry is sound. It will manipulate, it will deform quite nicely. And you can use the sculpting tools for that if you wanted to inside of Maya to sort of smooth that out yourself. Or you can just do it manually like I'm doing it here. So I'm just bringing that in. Bringing in the abdomen a little bit. And then if you need to, just double check to see how it's all coming along. I've got a few verts that are slipping across the midsection, so just hold down X and snap them back to where they need to be. And then I'm just going to go through and just use the sculpt function to just smooth out those distribution of verts a little bit more. But what we got here is a contour line that conforms nicely to the body shape of this particular character. And the nice thing is I can still get that structure of the bum in there without too much complexity in the body there as well. Pretty happy with that. Eventually we'll add more geometry down the center line there as well. But overall, pretty happy with that scenario. That looks pretty good to me. Just like that. Sweet. So yeah, there's the overall structure for the body is pretty much there. Now it's just a matter of extruding out the legs a bit further. Scale that down. Adding loops where you need to. like so. Cool. Very happy with that. All right. Let's smooth shade that and see how we're coming along. A few bumps and bruises here and there, but that's nothing that can't be fixed. All the geometry is pretty sound, pretty easy to manipulate and smooth out as needed. All right, so just take a moment to sort of line up your drawing or your geometry with your drawing before we move on to any more detail. So I'm just going to work out my silhouettes a little bit, especially around the hips. The hips are pretty important for this character, so I'm just going to go through and work out that geometry. Obviously, I'll need to add a bit more around the legs because they look a bit too straight, but overall, we're getting there. All right, cool. So even with the midsection, we can probably add another loop that goes around the body, because eventually what we need to do is create the neckline. So what we're going to do is go into object mode, perspective view, and probably just delete these faces here, because eventually that will be used for the neck. For the legs, now we can start to add a few extra loops to kind of get that structure in there. So you'll see that we need to add a little bit more volume along the length. So I'm adding more volume here, and you can't really avoid adding more loops when you in this case. You kind of need to have them in there. So add loops when you need to. Just like so. Don't be afraid to just push and pull things around. Be patient, and you'll get there in the end. So you can also turn on X-ray joints to see how it's all come together. So just the X-ray joints, X-ray, just to see where those pieces line up in your drawing. All right, so once you feel comfortable moving on from the legs, I'm pretty happy with what I've got so far. I can always come back and refine it further. I'm going to work on getting the arms up and running and getting them the shape there. So it's really just about adding a certain amount of cuts. So there's no rules as to how many cuts you need to have, but you can choose whatever's best for your scenario. So I'm just going to cut a few and then just shape them out first, and then add a few more as I need to. So you can see I added a few loops around the shoulders, around the top, and a couple around the arms. So I'm just smoothing that up with my mouse, just to get that volume into the shoulder. You can see the shoulder sort of gaining a little bit of volume there. And if you need to make those shoulders pop a bit more, give them more volume, sometimes it's just a matter of just moving the verts around as needed. And the cool thing is here, if this woman didn't have any breasts, you can see that the chest is already starting to take shape. So if the chest muscles are still sitting underneath her body, for the neck, it's pretty straightforward. Just select these faces here, or edges, sorry. And we're going to extrude up. You can shrink those down if you want to suit. And after that, we'll worry about the head at the end. So think about that. You can always go in and change and fix up the curvature of that if you want to. Easiest way would probably be to circularize it, but we can't because it's mirrored. So we're just going to go through and quickly clean up that mesh. So you can see all the parts and pieces are there. It looks a bit knobbly, but again, it just takes a bit of effort to go through and just soften that up a little bit and then refine. So we're losing a bit of mass in that back there, but that's all right. We can always go in and fix it. But otherwise, yeah, just the majority of that body is done. Like all the major loops are in there, except for maybe the hands and the breasts. We can start to add more loops down the center line now, if you want to, just to keep that nice and consistent. And we can put those into place as well. So if you really wanted to get that musculature into the back, without having to actually model in the musculature, this is how you kind of go about doing it, just adding the volume as needed. And you can still add more vertical loops as well if you wanted to, because they're just traveling around the body. But we can worry about that later. All right. Fill up any holes that are accidentally being created from moving things around too much. All right, cool. So now we need to think about the hands, most likely. So if we just worry about the arms and hands a little bit, let's go ahead and jump into front view. Let's refine these arms a little bit further, but I think we should be enough to refine those later. You can always go in and add a few more loops if you wanted to. Tighten up those that geometry. But the hands are probably one of the most important things to get right. So let's jump into orthographic view, perspective view, and see what we can do. So we have, let's see. Let's go to display and go to, where is it? Viewport. I just want to see the heads up display. Poly count. So grab this poly count. I just want to see what the polys are. So I have how many things selected? I have 20. No, yeah, 20 selected. So that means there's 10 on this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So start from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sweet. Just what we need. So I'm just going to circularize that a little bit. Great. We can probably delete that, actually. Delete that for now. And we can probably twist it a little bit. So the twisting allows us to get some forearm twist when we rig it, if you want it to be rigged. So if we go to component, let's just twist that a little bit. Something like that. We'll be fine. We can probably reduce that a little bit. There we go. Something like that. That's cool. All right. So let's talk about how to model hands. And this is my newly refined version of modeling hands, by the way. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do, we're going to firstly extrude out some faces. All right. Part of me says we should probably do this as a separate object for now. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to double click on this and push mesh, separate. And then under mesh, let's see, detach. Let's see, detach, does that work? Yep. And mesh, separate. There we go. They separate objects. Yeah, they are. Not sure why it's green, but let's go to Lambert 1. There we go. Lambert 1. All right. The only reason I'm doing this is because I'd rather do this when the cans are flat, because it's a lot easier to deal with. So I'm just going to reset the pivot towards that. You can push down D to change the pivot, and C to, or V to snap to vertices. So I'm going to snap to the vertice around here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to put it to the side a little bit. All right, that'll do. Cool. Just going to rotate that down like that for now. Just leave it at that. Let's go into front view. Yeah, that'll do. All right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to firstly, this will be the palm of the hand. So what we're going to do is expand that out like so. That will be the palm. And then I'm going to bridge some of these together. So I'm going to bridge this to this, this to this. And finally, this one to this one, this one to this one. All right. So this will form the bulk of our fingers, and it's going to also form the bulk of our palm. So it's going to fix up these a little bit, straighten them up a little bit, like so. This works great when you have an arm with 10 faces. Works just as well with 12, but I think 10 is like the sweet spot for this. 12 will happen naturally anyway as we work on getting this. If you had 12 spans, you wouldn't have to do as many collapses on some of the verts, but otherwise it's fine. So I'm going to do a cut here. All right. Then I'm going to select this edge, and this edge. Control B to bevel it. I'm going to bevel those like so. Okay. Now we have this n-gons here. So what we need to do is weld those together. So I'm going to weld these. Going from vertice, by the way. I'm going to weld those together like so. Weld, 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 and weld. So what we end up having is an edge loop that goes around the palm at the moment. We have space for 1 finger, 2 finger, 3 finger, 4 finger. And these are sort of where the webbing will go. So these ones here is where the webbing for the index finger will be, webbing for the middle finger, webbing for the pinky and the ring finger. All right. Don't worry, it'll make sense in a second. What we need to do now is just create an edge loop here for now. Edge loop here to maintain the quad structure, and edge loop there. Okay. Then we're going to do a loop right around the back, right around the front of the fingers, because that will end up being the bulk of our finger extrusions. So we're going to build up some mass for that finger. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is just realign some of these faces a little bit. So I'm going to widen out this one a little bit. Go back into world mode. Scale that up a little bit. I'm going to widen these out a little bit as well. Widen these ones out a little bit. I'll probably make it smaller actually, but scale that up a little, at least, like so. There we go. All right. So now we're going to just select these three, these four, extrude. Done. There's a bulk of our fingers. Oh, fuck, that was a weird selection. Extrude, like so. Now we still don't have the mass we need to maintain shape on those, fucking hell, on those fingers. So we need to add some spans going, one span going down the length of the fingers. So we need to add a loop here. I'm gonna add a loop here first. Then we're gonna add our loops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, we can't have all these spans going up the hand. We need to collapse them. So we're going to add another cut here. All right. Now, in order to collapse these spans going up the hand, we're going to grab these two vertices. We're going to go to the target weld and weld all these together like so. 1, 2. In this case, it will be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We're trying to maintain that 10 span structure that goes up the hand. So grabbing all those, we're going to push Control Delete and delete that. So we're still keeping that 10 span or 12 span setup. So right now we have 12 selected. That's all right, we'll deal. You can delete these now. Now, delete those. Delete. All right, so now we have enough space to circularize these. So I'm gonna circularize this one. Circularize that one. Circularize that. Whoa, what happened there? And circularize this one. Now we can just shape these fingers as needed. So just a basic sense, we're going to shape them down. Let's get the basic layout. So we're just really blocking these out for now. Like so. Trying to keep the proportions correct, and again, fucking hell, Maya. 1, 2, 3, 4. Select those. Scale. So just getting them out and running. We're not worrying about detail right now, we're worrying about structure. All right, so we got the fingers working here. Now it's up to us to figure out the thumb. Now the thumb is pretty interesting because just like we talked about in the previous videos, well, the stuff that I've done in the past is that we have to figure out the padded area versus the actual extrusion of the thumb. And I've come up with a pretty easy way of figuring this out. Yeah, and I'm actually pretty happy with the way it works out. So what we're gonna do is just like, like as we talked about in the past, the thumb pad should take up the bottom quarter of the hand. That being said, it also has to take into account the right angle, the opposable factor of the thumb as well. So what I like to do is I'm going to grab all of these parts here up until the top half of that finger lines up with that line there. And what I'm going to do is extrude out that body of edges. That being said, I might actually, before I do that, I might bring back some geometry here. Oh, no, fuck that, no. So yeah, just going to grab all of this. Make sure you don't select the top, by the way. And we're just going to extrude out those faces, just like so. Boom. Actually, yeah. All right, so now we've got the fingers largely blocked out, which is fine for now. We can worry about the details later. Is that we have to figure out the structure of the thumb. And in the previous series, I had quite a bit of trouble getting that right in the first go, but I've come up with a method that works pretty good for our purposes here. So what we're going to do, all right, now that we got the blocked out fingers sorted out, it's now it's time to figure out the structure of the thumb. Now, as I talked about in the previous videos, your thumb has to sort of take up the bottom quadrant of the hand. And the reason is that it's full of padding, right? But at the same time, you kind of have to extrude from the side here to get the opposable thumb to work. So I've come up with a method that I think works pretty well. So what I'm going to do before I get started, I'm going to actually bring back these edges here, just for now. And I'm going to maintain that grid structure just for now. I'm going to make a loop here as well before I hit the wrist around here. All right, cool. Because what I want to do is create an extrusion like so. I'm going to select these edges here that are in line with the fingers, these faces, sorry. And then I'm going to select these edges, these faces here as well, which are sort of in line with the padding of the finger. So after I do that, I'm going to extrude out a series of faces like so. Now you might be wondering, what the hell is he doing? Well, what I've essentially created is the structure of the, oh fuck. All right, so now we've got the fingers blocked out for the index, the middle ring and pinky. It's time to work out the thumb. So what we're gonna do is first we're gonna bring these a little bit closer, these edges here, up along the hand. Like so, just bring them up a little bit. I'm gonna scale them out a little bit. We can worry about all the details later. Just make sure you select all those parts. Bring them forward a little bit. Scale them out a little bit, like so. And then we're going to create what we're going to be using for the thumb. So I'm going to create a cut here and a cut here, okay? Now, in my previous videos, you may remember that I had quite a bit of difficulty with the thumb, and I've kind of refined my method since then. So what we're going to do is still select the bottom quadrant of the thumb here, but now I'm going to select these faces here as well, because what I plan on doing is doing an extrusion here to get the padding. And to be honest, you can probably get away with selecting this here as well. And what I'm going to do is just extrude out a set of faces like so. Now you might be wondering what the hell's going on here. Well, what we've just done is created the padded area for the thumb to be sort of built from. Now what I'm going to do here is actually create the thumb from this, in between this extrusion, by adding a cut down this new extruded face, like so, and like so. And from there, we extrude the thumb from this area here. Now you might be wondering what the hell, and you'll see what I mean once you see it all in action. So I'm just gonna circularize that, for fuck's sake. Making sure I don't select the back faces, so I'm gonna turn that on. I'm gonna select these faces here, making sure not to extrude things by accident, as always. And then I'm gonna circularize that for now, scale that up, just ever so slightly, not too much, and just have enough geometry that I can extrude out the thumb. And you kind of have to maintain that 45-degree angle. And there we have it, the thumb up and running. Really, really straightforward stuff, because once you start to sculpt this out, you'll see what I mean. So I still got 12 faces there, but that's okay. We'll deal. Extrude that out. And we're good to go up there. There's our hand. So now if we go into sculpt mode and try to smooth this out, you'll see it all come to light. Just like magic, once you smooth it out, ooh, that looks good. That padding on that thumb looks just like what you need. How nice is that? And if you want to increase the padding on this side for the pinky side, all you got to do is this. Grab the knife cut, the multi-cut, and cut down to here. Merge it there, cut down to here, cut up here. Good to go. Delete these edges here, cut here, and you got yourself enough padding for the outer palm, just like so. And just with a little bit of tweaking, you can get enough mass inside the palm there. So grabbing the inside there, we can start to sculpt that out a little bit more, just smooth it out. And you can start to see how effective this method is. And trust me, it deforms really well. Now, all you need to do from here on in is just refine the detail. So the loops are all there. You don't have to worry about the palm. It's really just about the fingers now. So it's really just about adding the loops where the knuckles are and cleaning that up. So add a loop around here and a loop around there. Here, 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 and here, here, and here. And for the thumb, around there. And now again, just start to refine those shapes. So I'm just going to circularize those for now. And of course, fingers aren't circular in nature, but like just by circularizing it, it helps to even things out a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't do a great job. It doesn't align properly, but that's okay. So now it's just a matter of refining up your the fingers. So go ahead and do that. Now always make sure to add the appropriate amount of loops for the knuckles to maintain that volume. All right, so now we've got the well, the basis of a hand. It's not perfect. It's like, as in, it's not perfectly like modeled to shape to the way I want, but it's good enough for reattaching to the arm. We need to firstly reduce down the numbers on the wrist from 12 to 10. So if we go over here, we have 10. Where is it? Yeah, 10 edges there. So in order to do that, we need to reduce down our polys. And this is actually quite simple. All we need to do is go into edit mode within the vertices, target weld this one to this one, and then just delete these. And I know that looks really low poly, but it's kind of meant to be. That's basically how I go about reducing the poly count on the wrist, because there's not really much deformation on the top of the hand, so you can kind of get away with it, unless of course you wanted to actually have a higher poly count, in which case you can live with the 12, or you can add more verts up the arm. So it really depends. So eventually, it may come down to it where you add more geometry on for the head that travels down the arm, in which case you can always bring it back onto the hand. Anyway, now what we need to do is just rotate this into place again, like so. And then we're going to recombine these two objects. So go to select this one, select that one, go to mesh, combine. Now they're one object. And you can see here that the mirror has been, well, destroyed essentially. So we have to remirror that in a moment. But let's go back to perspective view. And now our job is essentially to re-weld, so to speak, these parts. So let's go into edit mode, vertice mode, target weld, and just work your way through the wrist. And because we have 10 on each side, it should be perfect. Knowing me, it won't be. Yeah, it's not. Because I didn't delete enough edges. Let's see. Well, we can always go back to what we had before. So in that case, rather than deleting these, we'll just keep them. Just gonna keep them back, and we'll be fine. Bring back those parts, but that's still useful for those who do have the right amount of spans going up the hand. In any case, let's redo this, and we may come to the point where we have, let's see, 10 and 12, in which case it's probably a safe bet, because we had 2 extra spans going up the arm here. We can probably get away with 2 extra spans down the neckline. So I'm just going to put them there, and we should be fine. All right, so in this case, let's target weld these up. So I'm going to target weld using vertice selection. 1, 2, 3. And we're golden. All good. All we need to do now is add a few cuts down here, and then smooth out the distribution of verts. So I'm going to grab the sculpting tools again and just smooth out those verts. Don't worry about the scale of the wrist. We can always fix that up after the fact. As long as they're attached and everything's working, that's all that matters right now. Cool. And then we can just rescale the forearm muscles. So let's go ahead and do that. If we have to, we can always resize the hand a little bit as well, but let's not worry about that right now. Just a bit of push and pull with the verts, as always. Or we can just widen out the thumb area. Nice thing about this this topology is that it isolates different sections really well. So the whole thumb, for instance, can be easily selected. All right. So you can see here that the mirror has basically disappeared. That's because I separated the hand and fucked up the mirror. So what I'm going to do is firstly delete the history on this. I'm going to do a fresh mirror. Not sure why there's one there. On this. So I need to reset that that pivot. So what I'm going to do is hold down D and point that pivot to the center of the world, like so. So now that when we look at the pivot, it's down in the center of the world. Do a new duplicate special. All right. So far we have basically the entire body up and running. I mean, it's not perfect again, like in terms of the geometry is all there. The actual geometry is fine. It's just that it just needs a bit of polish, okay? So I may have to make another video on just polishing. I might just do a time lapse on that, but in terms of geometry, it's all there, okay? All right, for the feet, I'm not gonna bother doing the toes, but the toes would be pretty simple anyway. If you wanted to do them, just have to extrude them out from the base of the foot. All right, so for the feet, let's go into edge selection mode. I'm gonna select these down here, go to side view. And basically I'm just gonna do an extrusion. So again, half the time it's just extrude and push and pull, extrude, push and pull, extrude, push and pull, extrude. Extrude out the foot. Go into front view. So I'm just going to select the following: 1, 2, 3, 4, and extrude forward. And that looks ridiculous, I know, but that's pretty much it in terms of like the actual geometry required for a foot, especially if you don't have any toes. Grab the same geometry at the front here and just pull it down. Now the tricky thing about doing toes is that because we only extruded 4 faces here, the 5th one always has to be almost like the thumb where you kind of have to extrude out, and that can be really tricky because it can lead to, well, a lot of issues basically. Anyway, we're going to now include some geometry here to round out that foot. I'm gonna flatten that up a little bit. Make sure that object, I'm going to go according to the world here. Flatten that out a little bit. And then it's just a matter of just shaping that foot. So getting that right curvature in there. And then what you'd do is add another ring around here. So you can get the arch of the foot in there. And you can go ahead and either sculpt this out or simplify it further. I'm going to smooth out the arch a little bit because that looks really quite horrible. And just round off those hard edges. Now the last thing to do is fix up that hole at the bottom. So in keeping with the geometry we have at the top here, we have a few options. We can just bridge everything up and then compensate. So this is probably be the easiest way to do it. So just grab these faces here, or edges, bring them forward, or back rather. And just like what we have here, we're going to create a bridge. So let's see how we go. 1, 2, bridge. 1, 2, bridge. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Bridge that. Oops, sorry, wrong one again. 1, 2, bridge. Now we have an issue where we have a triangle here. The only issue why that's happening is because there's no geometry up there to fill out that gap. Now we could add a bunch of geometry going up the body, but that would be stupid. So what we're going to do is create a loop here. And that will give us the quads we need to finish that. So I'm going to bridge those and bridge those. That would also help you maintain, if you want to add a little bit of heel, you can actually see it curve out in the heel quite nicely there as well. And that's the feet. Now, you could go in and start to work out where your ankles are and stuff like that as well. So if you want to go into front view, it's just a matter of just adding a few more loops here at the cusp of the ankle. And then basically treating it like a knuckle, so to speak. So just add a little bit of a scale difference here. Ah, shit. Make sure you select the whole loop. Now I've seen people actually extrude out the ankle, and I find that doesn't quite look right in my opinion whenever I try to subdivide it. So I like to have a little bit of a thing going on like this instead. Making sure I've chosen the right size of higher. Let's see. Yep. That should be correct. No, the inside is lower. Sorry, my bad. Like that. And you got yourself some decent anklage, I guess you can say. At least in the front, it looks all right. The side looks a bit bendy, so we just have to go in and fix those up. But again, the geometry is sound. It's just a matter of taking the time to clean up the distribution of the verts. And you can always add in more geometry around those loops because they aren't going anywhere. They're not going to loop around the entire body. You can keep it nice and clean in that regard. All right, let's give it a quick little clean up a little bit around the front. So I know it looks a bit weird and a bit blobby, but overall, for a first pass, we've got 90% of the body done, which is looking pretty damn good to me. And with a little bit more effort, we can get this looking really good over time. Now we can actually try this out if we want to. Let's do a quick mixer mode test and see if it's all working. And there we go. It's working. Let's see. So look at that. We know it's working. It's working well. And if you want to go in and polish it up even further, you can go ahead and do that. But now I'm just going to add the breasts and then start working on the face, and that should be it for this video. All right, let's move on. All right, let's get the breast area sorted out. So firstly, I need to make another a loop down the center line so I don't end up merging the centers too much. So I'm going to grab a loop like so, make a loop down there. That will be a center line that will stay safe from any intersections. And then, depending on how you plan on doing, whether you want to have a low poly or a high poly character, you could probably get away with just extruding out a giant bust like that, and then just using textures to fill out the contouring. But if you need to have them as separate objects or part of, like, you know, as is, you're better off just extruding out accordingly. So let's see what we can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That might be a bit much, a bit high. I think that looks a bit high, but in accordance to the drawing, it looks fine. It's going to extrude out like so. I know that looks weird, really odd. Gonna add extrusion like so. Make a cut here at least before I merge this center here. And then I'm going to try and circularize that for now to block it out. There we go. That looks better. And now let's just mold accordingly. So again, grabbing the edge slide tool. Obviously it looks a bit too pointy there, but that's okay. We can add more loops now. And then we're going to fill out accordingly. So try and keep it natural, of course. And there are better ways of doing breasts, like having actually contour into the chest and the shoulders. But this is like the easy, quick way to do it. All right, here comes the tough part, the face. So the face, we're going to extrude out basically a block and then work our way through the structure of the face. I think I've done a few methods for this. I tried a few methods that I thought would work, which they do work. It's just that they might be a bit too complex for someone just starting out. So what we're going to do, we are going to firstly extrude out all the way to the top, a series of faces. All right. We're then going to extrude out forward a series of faces. All right. We're then going to extrude out from the side, like so. Well, actually, up until here, a series of faces. And I will make sense in a second. All right. And then I think we will extrude out, thinking of the jaw. I'll make a cut here. And then let's extrude out the back of the skull. So around there. So with these in mind, we're going to select all these faces here first. At the top. Not including that part there because that will end up being the jaw. We're going to extrude out faces like so. All right. For the top, I'm going to delete these faces for now. And make sure you delete the ones in the middle as well, because, you know, Maya, right? Let's be smart about this. All right. I know that looks weird, but it will make sense shortly. So what we need to do now is just quickly go through and clean up the distribution of these edges. So just give it a bit of a spherical like, a cylindrical like shape. So going through, give it a cylindrical like shape. Just like so. And this is just one method of many, of course. And I think that will be fine. Cool. This will be interesting. I'm actually making this method up as I go along. All right, so for this part here, for the jaw, we're going to bring that jaw line down along with this part of the neck. Bring it all the way down. And you can bring this one back up a little bit as well. So we're forming the jaw line essentially of the character, following the contour of the face. Bring that jawline down like so. And we've got ourselves a decent jawline. All right, cool. All right, I think that will do fine. We can smooth these out later on as well. We can actually, if you look at the geometry, if we smooth it out now, it actually does form a pretty decent geometry for the jawline. If we smooth it out, it actually works really well. The only thing we need to do now is just sculpt it a little bit. Just sculpt it a little bit, soften it out a little bit. It'll be fine. There we go. And then we can clean up those verts on the side. Make sure they're staying in the center. All right, cool. So again, looking at that, so far looking all right. Not too bad for the head. All right, cool. What we can do now is go into front view and turn on texture preview and also turn on X-ray. This one up here, just to see where everything is. And we can see how it all lines up. So grabbing these verts here, I'm going to bring them down a little bit. And we're going to figure out how we're going to work out their face. All right, cool. Jump out of X-ray when you don't need it. All right, sweet. So, for those who haven't finished seeing my videos in the past, the face is basically made up of 3 or 4 different sections. One is the mouth, 2 is the nasolabial crease that goes around the jawline to the chin, sorry. And then we have the eye socket, and then we have the eye loop. So what we need to do is create those loops out of this, well, these faces here. So what I'm going to do is start off by adding a cut here. Let's turn on this view first. And I'm going to add a cut here. The first loop we need to figure out is our eye loop. So the loop that goes around like a little raccoon mask. So I want to create a few loops like so. Yep, and one loop down here as well. And I'm going to start merging loops together. So I'm going to merge this one to this one. Oops, sorry, I want to cut, I want to merge. I want to weld. So I'm going to weld this one to this one, and this one to this one. And what we end up having here is a loop that starts to go around the eyes, around the face. We're going to delete, Control, delete these faces here. All right. I'm going to add a new cut here, and then I'm going to weld. using verts. 1 and 2. Ah, shit. 1. What the hell's going on here? And 2. Not sure what's going on there, but we're going to figure that out. Just delete that face. It must have been an accidental extrusion. All right. I'm going to cut those out. Control delete that. All right. So now we have our first loop. Just what we need. Perfect. Our second loop will be the eye socket, which is this one. We're going to extrude inwards. Just like so. And then delete those faces. Okay, cool. So now we have our second loop, which is this one and this one. Perfect. All right. Now we have a problem here. We've got this line here. What I'm going to do is control delete that and add a loop here and then cut connection there. So that loop will go into the eye for now. I'm going to add another loop here as well, another loop here and another loop here. And you can see it's traveling down the body now, so we don't want that for now. So we will hold off on that for the time being. So hold off on those two for now. But these ones are fine. All right, cool. Now we need to figure out our nasolabial crease. So this one is tricky because we haven't got much geometry to work with at the moment. So we're going to create another, I'm going to create another cut. Let's see, where can we create a cut? I might ignore the cut for now. Let's just go with 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5. I'm going to select these 6 pieces here and I'm going to extrude in like so. All right. I'm going to delete these faces here. Like so. And now we've got our nasolabial crease, which goes around like so. I know it's weird. It will make sense shortly. Okay. Now we need to redirect a loop that goes under the nose. So firstly, let's extrude out. Let's add a loop that goes down the body and around the midsection of the face. So I'm going to create a new cut that goes right through the body. That's fine. It doesn't matter if it goes through the entire body, it's fine. As long as there's no holes in your body for no fucking reason. Let's add, let's select these ones and do an extrude. If you have these problems, I know, I feel you. I do it every day in this software. All right, cool. So we got our loops here. We're going to add a new cut down the center line of the body, like so. I know it's a bit tight down there. That's okay. We can smooth those out later on. And we can clean that up later on as well. So don't worry too much about that. We're going to extrude out the nose. So the nose will extrude out from probably around, let's see. I think it's going to extrude around here. Or maybe, yeah, here will be the first extrusion. I know it's a bit weird, it's a bit low, but we can fix that up later on. What the fuck? Alright, extrude that out. That will be the nose for now. Okay. Now for the mouth, we're going to redirect some edges. Because I want this to have a loop that goes around the chin and then a loop that stays within the mouth. So we need to create a loop that goes like so, up and around the nose and up into the eyes. So we're going to grab this edge here, extrude that up, rotate that. This vertice will go up here. So I'm going to use the target weld to weld up here. This one will weld up here. So what we end up having is a loop just like this. That goes up and around like so. I know it's weird, but it all makes sense. I'm going to do the same thing for this loop here. And I'm going to bridge that. So what we're going to have is basically right now we have a giant mouth in this setup. So like so. So all we need to do now is bring down these vertices a little bit, like so. And you will see that what we will end up having is something close to a mouth. Now, as you can see, this loop is going all the way around the mouth. We have a little isolated area for the nose, and now we can do an extrusion for the lips. Just like so, there's our lips. So now, as weird as it sounds, this is actually all the geometry we need to create an effective face loop. And the nice thing about this setup now is that, you remember how I needed to cut two edges down the head and down the bottom of the face? Well, now, because I set up those loops properly, they will no longer travel throughout the entire body. How about that? Oh yeah. So now we have almost everything we need for an effective face setup, except for the ears, of course. But first, let's just go through and use the basic sculpt tools with our mouse to smooth out some of these features. I know I went through that very quickly. And of course, if we smooth that out, we have one issue, and that is Maya's not smart, so it extruded out faces when we did a mirror. So get rid of those. I think there's no more overlapping ones. Yeah, that should be fine. Sweet. But now it's just a matter of, again, just like the rest of the body, working out how to place all those faces. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to circularize this. Squish it down a little bit. I'm going to grab these as well, squish these ones down. And I'm going to move everything up accordingly. So I'm going to move this entire loop here for the eye. I'm going to move it back. Oops, sorry. Going to move it back and line it up with the eyes up here. Same with this nose loop. And basically I'm going to push and pull verts until it all fits according to my sketch. All right, so you may be wondering if there's anything else that I have to actually talk about. Well, the answer is kind of not really. I mean, it may not look like much in the video here, but all the essential loops for the face are actually in place. They're ready to go. So really, all the only thing we have to do is start to mold this abomination of a face into, well, what the character is, essentially. Now, that being said, you will see me during the course of this next set of time lapses, me adding loops around the eyes, around the mouth, those sort of things, but they're all contained within those loops that I made at the beginning of constructing the face. So what I would say is, just as you're modeling your own face, come back to this video, have a look at me doing what I'm doing here, and just see what I'm doing, just observe, because me talking through every single loop is going to be very tedious. So the only thing you need to worry about really is, as you see me doing it right now, is just trying to frame everything into the layout of my model sheet. And that's why the model sheet's so important. So yeah, I'm gonna let it run for a while. Just have some music in the background and just watch as I, essentially break it down and pull it apart, stretch it, morph it, and align it to the sketch. That being said, if anything does pop up in this process that I think is worth mentioning, I will say something, but otherwise just sit back, watch what I'm doing, and try and copy it. Try and move things around, try and match your drawing, try and just be conscious of where you're pushing and pulling your verts, and you'll see I'll do some corrections here and there. But otherwise, just enjoy the video, and I'll chat to you soon. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I haven't really added any more geometry since I last spoke, but here you can see I'm actually adding loops for the eyelids and the eyebrows. So within that eye loop, I'm adding extra geometry so I can allow myself to fill out that volume. So that's what the process is all about, just getting that volume in now, working within the loops, not trying to add more geometry throughout the entire mesh, just within certain sections of the face. So just be aware of that when you're building out stuff like the eyelids, the mouth, and the nose.
Next level. Next level.
Again, as you can see, I'm about to add more loops for the lips, and the lips really do need that volume. They need to have enough loops to maintain the volume of the lips. So you can see me adding a few more loops inside that loop again. So also notice that the loops aren't traveling throughout the entire face. They're staying constrained or restrained within the actual mouth section. So just be aware of that again when you're doing or adding volume to the lips. Okay, so I'm about to close up the skull here, so or the scalp. So I'm just working within the geometry that I already have existed. I'm not trying to add more spans going along the face. I'm basically going to be using the underlying structure, the overall structure of what I already have to fill out the top of the scalp. So just observe the pattern in which I'm going to go ahead with closing up that skull, and try and keep it as clean as possible. So you can see I'm trying to be conscious of my horizontal and vertical lines that allow me to fill out that scalp. There's also some level of symmetry going on between the back and the front of the scalp with where I choose to change the direction of the loops. So again, just observe that in the model itself as I build it out. Okay, as I jump into the ears, you may not be kind of looking at your model and thinking, where the hell am I going to create the ears? It's really up to you how you create the ears. For me, I'm just going to be extruding out a single side of the face and then trying to sort of work within the geometry of that to create the edge loops needed for the ears. You may find that at first your ears start to look a bit like Shrek ears, but again, this is one of those moments in the modeling process where it may take a few tries to get right. I think in my circumstance, it might be 2 or 3 attempts to choose the right loops. I think I ended up going back and forth between ideas, but basically it all stems from just a single extrusion out and then using that extrusion to build geometry within the loop of the ear itself. So essentially creating loops within that extrusion to create the structure of the ear. Again, I'm going with a stylized ear because I can't be fucked going through the intricate detail of a realistic ear, and the character's design doesn't really warrant it either. But overall, we can see that the geometry is relatively simple overall. And then as I add more detail, you'll start to see that structure come into place. So where I place the loops like I've done just there, I'm adding volume where I need to. Okay, so just watch and just take a moment to think about how and where you want to put your ears. In some cases, it might be the case where you just don't even need to have them attached to the head. It can be separate elements depending on how cartoony your character is. So yeah, just a bit of practice is really what is required out of this one. A bit of trial and error, that is. Okay, now that the ears are done, it may be surprising to you, but after what, it's been about an hour, about 2 hours into this video, the model is basically done. The model, the overall geometry is all there. It's all present. The rest of this video is basically me just cleaning things up and adding clothing. And telling you right now, once you understand how to make a character like this from scratch, you will have no problem working out the clothing. So for the rest of this video, it's literally just me cleaning up the mesh, moving things around, making things cleaner, and just refining what I already have. So I'm going to continue with this video and let it run out till the completion of this character, and then I will finish up with a sample render of the character. And yeah, that's going to be cool. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video, enjoy the time lapse, and again, if I see anything that's worth bringing up, I'll bring it up.